Great to see everyone back here. We're about to dive more into AI. I mean, I love these packed AI sessions, really do. We're gonna be talking about generative AI in sports, media, and entertainment next. From personalized viewing experiences to automated highlight reels and more, you're gonna have a look at real-world applications of AI in sports, which is so cool. And moderating this panel is Kaylee Hartung, sideline reporter for Thursday Night Football on Prime. Give a warm welcome to Kaylee, everyone. She's awesome. I love her.
This is so fun. Hey guys, this is very cool. You know, the landscape in sports, media, and entertainment, it is evolving really quicker than ever before, and generative AI is a big reason why. Being the sideline reporter for Thursday Night Football, I've gotten a front row seat to that evolution and the ways that AWS is powering so much of how we are enhancing the viewership experience. We were never trying to reinvent the wheel with how an NFL game is broadcast, but I think we have found some really cool ways to make that viewing experience different and special from anything that we've experienced before. So whether you're a broadcaster, a streaming service, or a league looking to leverage the latest AI innovations, we hope this panel can provide some insight. Take a look at this video. I like a good sizzle reel to start off a panel. I feel like it's time for kickoff, just like on Thursday Night Football. But I'm going to set the stage first with the help of Matt Wood. He's the VP for AI products with AWS. Matt, can you come join me? Thank you, thank you.
Hello. How you doing?
Okay, so Matt, AI's been around for quite some time now, and it's been used in media and entertainment in different ways to enhance the customer experience. Things like adding metadata to archival footage, really making a lot of processes more efficient. This is sort of familiar to us, but I want us to dive right into generative AI and get a better understanding of what AWS is doing that's unique in this space and why companies should build with AWS.
Sure. Great to be here. Thank you for the question. Hello, everybody. I think, generative AI, we're pretty excited about it at Amazon. It's probably the single largest shift in how we're going to interact with data and information and each other, probably since the advent of the very, very earliest internet. And organizations, just like Amazon, that invested in the early internet 30 years ago, went on to experience pretty tremendous growth over those past 30 years. And I think organizations that invest in generative AI today are going to experience multiple Amazons of growth themselves going forwards. There's going to be a wealth of workloads. I kind of think of it as a technology which is going to enable us in the next 12 to 24 months to increase our productivity by about 10x. Which is pretty remarkable. I actually think that over the next 5 years, I think that's going to be an understatement. I think that the utility is going to be more like a 100x improvement, a 100x return on investment. Now, we're not there today. We're a long way away from it. You're looking puzzled already. Today, we're at like 1.2, 1.3x, something like that. But there's two really exciting things happening with generative AI that independently would be big needle movers for organizations that are happening at the same time. And I think this is the reason that a lot of people are really excited about it. The first is that there's just a step function change in the type of problems that you can solve using artificial intelligence and machine learning. The type of challenges, the complexity of the challenges, the amount of data that you can use to understand and the context that you can put around those challenges is just way larger, much larger than has ever been possible before. So that's the first big step change. That would be exciting in and of itself. The other area is that there's just a broad accessibility improvement. It's never been easier and faster to actually use machine learning for any task. And so you've got a broadening of accessibility where you no longer need deep machine learning expertise, you no longer need deep data science expertise, you no longer even need to train your own model. You can just take something that's out there and start using it, start tinkering with it, start tuning it, and then take it into production very quickly. And our role at Amazon is to democratize this technology such that everybody can start applying it to their business as quickly, as easily, and with as low cost as possible. Now, in order to do that, we have to make a collection of investments. So the first set of investments are really around just the low-level infrastructure required to be successful. So that is things like the networking, the silicon required to actually train and tune these machine learning models. So we've been building our own custom silicon now for many years at Amazon, and we have our own custom chips which accelerate the machine learning process itself that are available to everybody on AWS. And those chips are used by some of the leading model providers today, like Anthropic and Mistral AI and Amazon itself. So investing there makes machine learning lower cost, and it makes it much more efficient because we can run those chips cooler, they're much more power efficient, which is an important part of generative AI.
And the machines are learning even faster as a result.
That's right, yeah. So you can create huge supercomputers of tens of thousands of these chips in order to be able to train and tune a model of your dreams that can take any complex information and map it to any other complex information, which is the essence of machine learning. So we do that. We also make available a set of pre-trained models so that you can start to use them straight away. We allow customers to ground those models in the reality of their own organization using their own data. We do that securely and privately. You can fine-tune those models. You can take them apart, put them back together again, make it very easy. We add guardrails around those models such that you can use them safely and reliably. And then finally, we make a set of services and applications available, such as assistants like Alexa, or our assistant for business that we call Q, or our shopping assistant that we call Rufus. And so you can expect us to keep investing in those three main areas. And customers can most likely take advantage of all three areas as they're building and using generative AI themselves.
Mm-hmm. That all felt a little bit under the hood, so to speak. Can you explain some of the real examples in media and entertainment and how all of this has been put to work?
Yeah, for sure. There's a very large set of existing media and entertainment workloads that today can benefit from generative AI. Some of them you'll all be familiar with, but just managing assets is so important to this industry and to everybody in this audience. Generative AI makes managing those assets far easier and far faster than ever before. Whether you are dealing with very complicated data, understanding data that, as we'll hear from some of our sports customers, that comes from different sensors and different locations and comes from cameras and sensors in the ball and players and all those sorts of things, understanding all of that. Or if you're dealing with just media assets, whether you're generating more and more media assets, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of media assets, you don't necessarily want humans to have to sit and watch all of those in order to be able to understand what's going on inside every single scene. And so having an AI that can watch it for you and do the tagging for you and do that in a way which is far more not just efficient, but often better, is a huge opportunity. So assets are a really big area. Assistants are another really big area. I think that most organizations are investing in their own internal assistants that just make work easier. And I think a lot of when we join a new organization, or we have people coming from universities that are starting their first jobs, the first things they're going to ask for are, where's my laptop, what's the Wi-Fi password, and how do I access my assistant? Like those are going to be the three kind of fundamentals that you need to get work done. And then finally, the other area is just agents. So agents that can complete tasks for you completely automatically. Now, these agents aren't going to replace jobs or anything like that. They augment human creativity, and they augment human productivity. And so today, these agents can complete tasks which are in the ballpark of about 5 minutes in length. You can just offload that to the AI and have it do it pretty well. Anything longer than that today kind of isn't possible, but over the next year, 2 years, 10 years, we're going to be able to offload more complicated, more long-running tasks to the AI. So it won't just be 5 minutes, it'll be 15 minutes, and then 50 minutes, and then 5 hours, and then 5 days, and so on and so forth. And so that's how you go from where we're at today with kind of 1.2x to 10x productivity.
We're about to bring out a couple of AWS's customers to dive deeper into this, but I'm curious, how broad is the spectrum of customers who you're working with?
It's extraordinarily broad. I used to couch my language when people would ask that sort of question, and I'd say, oh, it's virtually every industry, or it's most customers. Today, I don't couch it at all. It is every industry, and it is every customer. I have never seen such energy, enthusiasm, invention, investment, and momentum from such a broad group of customers. Even with a technology as broad as AWS, this is a whole new game.
Very cool. Well, let's bring out some of those customers that you are so lucky to work with within the sports world. He is evangelizing the adoption of emerging technologies in sports and entertainment. Aaron Amendolia, Deputy CIO of the NFL. Can you come join us? I don't know where anybody's coming from.
See you again.
What's up, man?
Hey, hey.
How you doing?
And you can thank him for bringing you every shot live from all PGA Tour events. Scott Gutterman, the Senior VP of Digital Operations with the PGA Tour. And last but certainly not least, she is driving innovation in sports data and analytics for AWS. Julie Souza, the global leader for strategic business development for sports at AWS.
Woo.
So for as much as we all may consume some of the great sporting events that you guys are responsible for looking after, I think there are probably a lot of moments as viewers where we don't even fully realize the role that AWS has played in those. So let's try to wrap our minds around that. And after an exciting weekend at the Masters, I think I've got to start with the PGA Tour, Scott. What can you tell me about how the Tour has worked with AWS?
So we've worked with AWS to serve many of our constituencies, probably most importantly our players. One of the ways that we've been working with AWS and other partners is to deliver our players video that they need right after their rounds are done. So I can tell you, one of the players that uses the video right after the round, basically what we call speed rounds, which is a condensed version of a full round of golf, is Scotty Scheffler. He talks to our teams regularly about it, making sure that we have the video ready for him to go after he's done.
Sounds like a winning formula.
Exactly.
And how is that delivered to them? You know, I mean, I can say this from my own experience as a broadcaster. You know, I can walk off the field in the same way I want to watch the tape back, and sometimes it can be challenging, right, to actually get that content in my inbox for me to be able to view.
Sure. So right now they have an internal website that they can use on their phones or on an iPad for them to look at right away when they walk off. We are in the middle of building a new player app, a new member app. It's just an internal tool that will be particularly built to deliver them not only video, but all kinds of stats, and probably eventually, like what Matt was just talking about, some sort of agent that helps them to determine how they've played after their round based on what they've programmed or what they've tuned to the agent to look after.
Very cool. And Aaron, as far as the NFL goes, I mean, AWS and the NFL have worked together for years in this AI space. And like I mentioned earlier, I mean, TNF has benefited tremendously from next-gen stats, defensive alerts, and also their efforts in player health and safety. I will note that the machine learning on Prime Video just earned a Sports Emmy nomination for Outstanding Digital Innovation. We were very excited about that. But take us inside that work, because I know that there are so many layers to this that I'm not even aware of as we're broadcasting these games.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, is that it's been a layered approach for many years. NGS starting next-gen stats in 2017 with the sensors that the players wear, collecting data live, low latency, and then trying to build insights both for our broadcasters and storytellers, but also for the operation of the game. We use this to actually run the game and help describe the action on the field for everyone who's making decisions around the game. And then we went into the player health and safety initiative with the digital athlete in 2019 and have kept building since. So AWS has been a transformative aspect of our infrastructure and our data platforms, and we keep building on top of that. Have our data in the cloud, have everything accessible, so then when the next feature comes out, if it's Gen AI, then we have all the platforms there and the content there to build upon it. And that's been the strategic approach we've taken.
Well, and I think it's been part of our efforts during the main broadcast of TNF to actually push viewers to the other options they have, optionality, as we say, when you're watching an NFL game. How have you seen fans react to these other ways to engage with a broadcast that you just can't get on linear?
Yeah, with excitement. And I think that's the important thing. Meet your fans where they are and bring those experiences consistently accurate, real time. Everybody wants everything to happen in real time today. So you're bringing that data, that overlay, and that insight straight to where the fan is. So if they're on traditional broadcast television, they're on direct-to-consumer, they're on an app experience, they're at the game, and they want to engage in the game in a new way. They want to hold their phone up and get an AR overlay of what's going on in the field. These are the types of experiences we're trying to build and then bring to our fans.
Yeah. So Julie, these are just two of the folks who you get to work with, but you have such a fun job in the scheme of all of this, working with sports leagues and broadcast networks from, Formula One to Fox Sports. The list is quite long. But talk to us about how AWS is working to improve those sports broadcasts specifically. Any heads up you can give us about anything new to look forward to?
There's so much innovation in this space, and the data is a big part of this in terms of gleaning those insights and thinking about creative ways to put them out there. Aaron, you're talking about next-gen stats, but there's also the Toy Story version of the NFL, right? And that's bringing in a younger audience. NHL, actually yesterday, just did their third animated broadcast of an NHL game, leveraging the underlying data. But then sort of behind the camera, too, there's production evolution and live cloud production technologies being deployed. And we're seeing, and again, the NHL just did this on March 22nd. They went live to air with a broadcast of an NHL game that was produced entirely in the cloud. And that's significant because when you start thinking about the savings, not just time savings. I was talking to your colleague the other day. It used to take like 3.5 days, 4 days to set up to produce a PGA TOUR event. Now it takes a couple hours, right? So a lot more expeditious, cost savings at scale. I love this fact. If that NHL game that I referenced had been produced terrestrially, it would have emitted 2.05 metric tons of carbon dioxide. To counteract that, you would have to plant 34 trees and let them grow for 10 years. So at scale, there's a real impact environmentally that live cloud production can have on the industry too. So I could sit here and literally talk forever about all the cool things we're doing with our sports partners, but those are some of them.
Yeah. When you talk about scaling, as you all have learned more, just like we were talking about the machines starting to learn faster, how has your effort to scale evolved? Julie or Scott or Matt, any of you guys?
So for us, we're looking at scaling, the coverage, and just like Aaron was talking about, we have an initiative called Every Shot Live that we started 4 years ago at the Players Championship. We're the first golf entity to ever show every single shot from first drive to the last putt. We have 48 streams going on Thursday and Friday, about 24 going at the same time. So all of those streams are alongside of our television broadcasts and our ESPN Plus broadcasts. They don't currently carry any commentary on them. They're basically natural sound. You can hear the players. We use stats. We bring a lot of stats in through our AWS tech stack to kind of drive what people can see between shots. But what we really love to do is be able to have commentary on every single shot. We're not going to go out and find 2 commentators to sit on 24 streams at the same time. It's just not achievable. So with the emerging generative AI and AI machine learning techniques, what more can we do to drive those individual streams? And for us, those go all over the world. So if a network wants to see Hideki Matsuyama in Japan, we want to make sure that we can deliver to them in Japanese as well, too.
Yeah, for scale, certainly with the NFL as well. More cameras, more sensor data, more points of data around the game itself. So we've been endeavoring in optical tracking. Some people have seen that in the media lately. Optical tracking the same solution that may help us assist with officiating decisions is the same system that powered the Toy Story broadcast that Julie talked about. So we're trying to build these systems that have multiple layers of value, and they coordinate multiple types of AI, computer vision, machine learning, generative AI, and then an orchestration layer on top of it, often with natural language processing. So as we try to build these systems, the amount of data coming in at scale is massive. You don't have enough resources to enact on all that just by yourselves. You have to use more technology in the organization to put all those different points of data to use because it is a real-time operation. And so with that, a lot of work within the cloud and a lot of work with training our AI machine learning models to be assistants to the people producing the content for the game, whether it's social, whether it's helping our officials make decisions in real time, or it's our broadcast partners.
I would say one final important point of scale is that all of these capabilities, the features, the collection of data, the additional sensors, all of that gets put into a broadcast which is more engaging for the fans. And so a really critical element of scale is we're scaling the viewership. We're scaling the engagement by which an individual fan can invest in a particular game or team. And so as a result, the audiences are going to grow and grow and grow. Witnessing what these guys build just totally changes how you experience a game. And what we're going to be able to do with generative AI going forwards is broaden that audience even further with translation and the ability to be able to take what we're doing and broaden it to audiences outside of the fields that you're already working in. And so I wouldn't be at all surprised if we're looking at audiences in the hundreds of millions or even billions within our lifetime.
That's absolutely wild to think about, especially when I think about being on the other side of the camera and all of those people watching. Thanks for
It's going to be a
putting
lot more
that fear
people
of God
looking
in
at
me.
you. No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure whatsoever. Well, I mean, Aaron, you touched on the excitement that you feel from fans about all of this. So what can we expect next from the NFL in terms of generative AI specifically and how it enhances that viewing experience?
Yeah, and I can talk about some of the things we're actually working on now and testing. If you think about the old way of doing media and content search, and that has to change, right? We're talking about all these ways we're capturing even more cameras, even more context, more sensors. Well, if you're doing metadata tagging manually, you're never going to be able to discover everything, nor all the context for all the content you want to discover. So looking at generative AI, natural language search, indexing with computer vision our archives of media and content, including what's coming in and what has happened in the past, so that it's built into one operating layer. And then it connects to all of our tools that the different production roles use within our organization to surface that content. And you can put some more context into that you never do with metadata tagging. If you want to show Patrick Mahomes in the rain with a Pepsi sign behind him and a fan in face paint, you can't metadata tag for all those contexts. You also can teach AI how to recognize certain football actions that you can't necessarily always tag for. So I want to see a fair catch signal with this particular yard line with this player, but also I want to see it at a night game in this stadium, right? So there's all these different contexts that we want to be able to search for with natural language so that once we build that capability, that same model can be used in every different interface versus be siloed off to one specific working role. So we think what this will do is expose the value of our content at a greater scale, and then we can build in automation in the future based on that.
I think the level of detail that's available in the tags is also far bigger and more expansive than ever before.
That's right.
We were trying out a system the other day, and we had an athlete running, and we asked the AI to tag. And I think our expectation was, woman running on concrete in some sneakers. What we got back was incredibly detailed. It described the type of concrete, what the athlete was wearing. It described not just the sneakers, but it identified the brand of the sneakers and the make of the sneakers and the color of the sneakers, which it identified as a brand-specific color. So it wasn't yellow sneakers, it was Nike Volt yellow sneakers. So the level of detail that these AI systems are capable of today is just never been possible before.
And the multimodal search capability, audio plus visual plus data. And there's also a context you can give it of show me the spirit and emotion of this play. So I want to find a really hard-hitting, aggressive play. And I want to see that sense of like focus and determination out of the players, and it can return that.
Yep.
You can't metadata tag for that.
Yep.
Scott, what about on tour?
So it's very much the same type of approach that we're taking too, is creating these, a lot of times when people talk about AI and ML, the people that don't necessarily work in the space are thinking of data and thinking of strictly of data or statistics. What we're really talking about here is content. Data is just content, statistics is just content, video is content, the atmosphere of what's going on around it is really just content, and now you have greater access to it. So for us at the tour, we're pursuing a very similar path, which is going to result in a series of tools and efficiencies that we think will improve not only how our teams work and our broadcast work, but give our fans greater depth of what they can view. So for us, imagine giving Jim Nantz and Trevor Immelman the opportunity to say, we're going to follow these 6 players today. Give me 5 talking points after every one of those players finishes a hole. And that Jim Nantz and Trevor Immelman are able to work those into, Kaylee, you'd be able to like automatically get to see these opportunities come up and work them into the broadcast. And so with that, what we would hopefully be able to do is not only bring back the talking points, but bring back the video. So the broadcast systems, what we call our broadcast interface tool, will immediately be able to take that video, push that out into the broadcast just at the director's cue, or be able to generate a graphic out of it right away. Like Rory McIlroy has had the same shot on the 18th hole at the Tour Championship, 10 times. He's made it 30% of the times, but it would come like that. Right now, we all have people in our trucks and working with us that derive that information right away, but this is actually using generative AI to proactively present these points to you every time something happens based on the way that you want to present the sport.
And then there's Jim Nantz's institutional knowledge when he's calling the Masters. And just yesterday, he was like, oh, this shot from Scottie Scheffler, Tiger did that X number of years ago. His ball was in just the same place before he won. There is no replacement, I'm going to say, for Jim Nantz's institutional knowledge of the Masters in particular. But I loved how you both were saying, some of what he was saying, but across these different sports. Julie, I'm curious, how often with the clients who you're working with, do you have somebody from Formula One say, oh, we saw the PGA Tour do this, but here's how much of that back and forth is there as each league finds the right way to pursue their path?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's always learning from each other. They're also very competitive because it's sports, right? So everybody's trying to take it to the next level. And so that's what's really exciting. And Aaron talked about the copious volume of data that we're seeing in sports, right? And the content is multimodal. So you're talking about, you guys at the NFL, you're collecting 300 million points of data per season, right? And that's going into next-gen stats. And that is nothing on what you're collecting from, CV and optical tracking to inform digital athlete and things like that. So you're starting to see everybody with a lot of data trying to figure out what are the use cases for that data and how do we deploy it. And I think, Scott touched on what is essentially operational efficiency that's driving a lot of this with Gen AI. It can take people's time away from researching, a research assistant or a production assistant spending a week pulling all of this data. The system, Gen AI can pull that data, and then that PA or research assistant is coming up with things that are far more creative and interesting and more the color commentary part of things. And I think as we're learning from things, I want to use the point, a Gen AI point that we recently demoed with Bundesliga in Germany, and it was producing commentary for a match in multiple languages and it wasn't translation, it was actually taking data, creating sentences in text that were using the vernacular of that language, and then on top of that, so let's produce this one game, or one match, multi-language, and then let's do different personas in those languages too. So you can sort of see this like spider web being created where we could do a straight Jim Nantz style broadcast, or you could have, they literally had one called Bro. And this is probably what fraternity boys sound like. I don't know, like sick goal, dude, right? So it's a little bit more personality. But think about it. I mean, you could appeal to a nascent new fan and explain things in a way that it brings them into the sport. You could go really deep in the analytics and offer it to somebody who's a sports bettor or just, a data wonk, right? So I think you can see generative AI creating multiple versions. It goes back to what you were talking about before in terms of offering, as much personalization in the feeds and in the broadcasts and in the content that we give them. And that's what Gen AI is sort of enabling, because it would never be economical to hire producers in every single, or talent in every single language in all of these different personas for a single match, right? So it lets you say, all right, let's get this to Japan. Let's get a different, persona for Tulsa.
You just brought up sports betting. What does the intersection of generative AI and sports betting look like?
Oh gosh, that's a. I think to the extent that you're creating models and doing predictive things that you're already seeing, I think that it informs in that way for those. But I don't. I don't want to.
Well, I think the thing
rights
that,
involved. It gets sensitive.
Right. The way that one of the ways that we're looking at with our partners at IMG right now is who's also doing some work with AWS is just creating betting content, right? So creating commentary that is geared at that person that wants to, that particular point of knowledge was what Julie is talking about, is like, okay, I want to know what the odds are of Rory making this shot right now because I may be doing some in-play betting and that may help inform my choices and what I want to do. But that way, that person, when they open up the PGA TOUR app or they open up one of the IMG betting apps, that they're able to get that type of commentary right there. So I think over time, it'll help develop. It's just another content stream for people to develop another point of view, which is, like, again, we can't hire enough resources to actually create that. So we really need these tools, these generative AI tools, to help create that point of view.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Matt, what can you tell us how generative AI is being used with other customers beyond the PGA and the NFL?
Sure, it's actually really interesting. So I would say most customers I work with, including in this audience, are making very deliberate, very targeted investments in this space. They're moving forward pretty quickly. Everyone thinks that they should be moving faster. Everyone thinks their competitors are ahead of them, which is almost never true, but fine.
We'll let them think that.
Well, there is a group that are moving, kind of going all in. And they are moving incredibly quickly. And somewhat counterintuitively to me, it's often the regulated industries. So insurance companies, financial services companies, banks, life sciences, healthcare, all those sorts of things. They've actually done a lot of the investment required to be successful with generative AI with just a very small incremental lift. So they've had this sort of compliance requirements over many, many years, many, many decades, which I'm sure at the time felt like a bit of a headwind. So it's just, we've got to go through this, we've got to get our governance in place, we've got to get our data structured in a way, we've got to get our data quality up, we've got to understand our privacy, we've got to understand security, like all of those sorts of things. But they've invested in solving all of those problems, almost all of them on AWS. And as a result, they've done all of the work which is required of them to move very quickly with generative AI. And so now you're looking at insurance companies that are understanding the risk of their very old insurance contracts, life insurance contracts. These are contracts which maybe are 90 years old. They're going to be coming up for, they're going to be coming true in a couple of years. And they have never been read by a human. And so they're using generative AI to understand all the risk associated to that. Or companies like Pfizer that are using generative AI to try and find new oncology targets for new pharmaceuticals. So it's just extremely broad. But that group specifically are able to move very, very quickly. And in every case of a customer that I've worked with, sorting out the ability to be able to use your data safely, reliably, in a way which is secure and private. That's kind of like the do not pass go, do not collect $200 baseline. That's where everybody needs to start. And so getting that governance wrapped around your data, it may feel restrictive, or it may feel like it's going to prevent innovation, and it's going to prevent you from moving quickly, but it's actually an extraordinary accelerant for being successful with generative AI. And generative AI is the accelerant that will accelerate all workloads. And so it's probably the single largest leverage investment that most organizations are making today or have made in the past 10 years or so.
Are there any examples you can think of industries outside of sports, completely disconnected from sports, where they're using generative AI in ways that you think the sports world could piggyback on, or could think, oh, we hadn't thought of that, but here's how we can apply it to us?
For sure, there are some really interesting properties of these machine learning models. The bigger they get, the more those properties start to emerge. The more modalities you start to mix together, the more those properties start to emerge. And one of the things that we found was in a disconnected area, if you try and predict how a protein's going to fold, this has been a long-standing computer science problem, completely solved today with artificial intelligence. So if you just want to see how a protein folds, it folds into a 3D shape, and that shape tells you how it's going to act, whether your eyes are brown or blue, whether you have a higher risk of breast cancer, all those sorts of things. And the protein always folds to its most stable state. But if you want to try and find that state computationally, it used to take, or it would take, longer than the length of the universe to compute it. It's completely intractable. With AI, you can do it in about 10 seconds, and the model itself isn't just guessing the shape in an accurate way. It looks like one of the emergent properties is that it has learned the energy function of the most stable state of the protein. So if you inspect how the neural network is firing, it actually gives you insight into how the protein is folding. And that's the emergent property of the model. And so if I was in your guys' shoes, I'd be creating ever larger models, capturing multiple modalities to be able to encourage those emergent properties to manifest so that you can channel them into entirely new products, experiences, and so on.
Sounds like we're going to have the best NFL schedule ever coming up.
Totally true, totally true.
But I want to play off of what Matt said about deciding your operating and your guiding principles for how you employ AI within your organization. So very early on, we drew together a cross-organization group of leaders in legal, in our finance group, because you have to pay for all this, also within our creative areas.
It's very cost-effective, by the way, so don't let that bug you.
Our broadcast areas, football operations, and technology. And we brought us all together to understand the risks and the opportunities. And then what are our guiding principles as we start to adopt this new technology? Because speed to market is very important for all of us. So we want to be prepared to put something in the context of those principles when we want to act on it, because this moves fast. It's going to challenge you really fast as this technology is emerging. And so that was really key for us. But then also bring your vendors, your partners to the table with you, because you want to exercise your right to own and control your model. So what you build in AI applies to the same principles and architecture you would apply to any other technology that you've deployed. So really important to own and control that model. That's what we've been able to do with AWS, move that model around and not give away that secret sauce of our brand or the training for free to a public-based model that someone else can go implement and use for their business purposes. We want it to be ours, we own it, and then we want to have the benefits of having that model trained.
I know we're here to talk about the customer experience of all of this, but Aaron, can you imagine a time where generative AI is used by teams in your league for competitive advantages, or as a way to do more research on probabilities in the way that if you're going for it on 4th down against the Eagles defense, like can we use generative AI to help us predict?
Well, I think at the league, the first mission is to make sure everything has fair and integrity to it, right? So we look at this, right? We're trying to figure out what is the impact of generative AI as a risk and an opportunity on the game itself. Now, the league's place is not to change the competition. It's to actually enforce the competition and make sure it's fair and that everything on game day has the right policies, but also gives the best possible game, the best possible fan experience. So we are doing that, making sure that there are fair access to data across all the teams with equity, making sure all the teams have the resources and knowledge, and those guiding principles that we've established at the league level are communicated down to the clubs as well. And on game day, the league is also making sure all the rules are enforced and everything goes as it should. But for generative AI, yeah, there are instances you could see where generative AI, we don't want it making decisions for the game itself. We want it to be an assistant, like it is in many ways that Matt talked about before, through that work. Because there are already people doing these tasks. And there are already coaches who have analytics experts, and they're already analyzing practices and scouting footage and all these things. So I think generative AI will only come in and enhance all those workflows, and then the league will make sure these things are done on game day and create the best possible game.
I think it's like an evolution, though, too, Aaron, because it's, when the data first started coming out, the NFL in particular was like, oh, let's be careful about sharing this broadly across all the teams. And but, now can you imagine talking about sports without this level of data? And you're even, what you guys are doing on Thursday Night Football, Kaylee, is introducing things that are changing the way we watch the broadcast. I mean, I think about, let's go back to like the yellow line in football, right? You can't, I mean, first time I took my kids to a football game, my son's like, where's the yellow line? Like, on television, honey. But you know, you start talking about things like these defensive alerts and things to look for, and those are things that are now being brought into the main broadcast. So it's evolutionary. People started getting a little bit more facile with the data, and it became part of our vernacular around sport. Gen AI will, I predict, follow that same path. It will just become part of the way we do things.
The one thing I would add is I think that Aaron actually has it pretty easy because all of his competition takes place on a rectangle. I think where AI comes in for us is we have 18 fields of play. We have 3 players on fairways, tees, and greens. We just recently deployed our new ShotLink 2.0 scoring system, which is 120 cameras across the entire course. So we're moving from a human-driven way to capture all of the scores and ball flight around the course to an image-driven way and an AI-driven way, which is a combination between those cameras and all of the radar that we put on the tees and the greens. And so for us, the way that we're going to be able to use it is like, and you guys have probably seen some of this, where a fan will call in and say, oh, I saw the ball went over the line here. It's actually happened just recently at the Players' Championship. Or somebody moved a ball or things like that. For us, we can't, we don't have enough rules officials to put, watch every single shot. And now with the new system that we have in place, we can actually calculate within a few feet of where that ball was likely to land the minute that it's hit. And so we will actually be able to say, you know what, it did cross the line here. We'd be able to do that. We are actually in our new studios building a new room for our officials so that they'll be able to see all of these inputs and get all of this feedback and then react to that on the course. Right now in golf, it's really hard because unless it's on about 17% of all shots are actually shown during a golf event, which means that we can't officiate every single one, which is as a gentleman's game that we have to play or as a player's game that we have to play, you have to be able to say, yeah, the ball crossed the line there in the right place. But now we'll have a source to go to and say, no, definitively, this is where the ball crossed the line, even if it's not been on television or not been shown on a stream.
Well, and Julie, is there anything else you want to touch on in terms of other leagues and what they're looking to accomplish with generative AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of this. I mean, player health and safety use cases, thinking about how do you project out and do modeling on things that, may be predictors of injury. So it's sort of using synthetic data and Gen AI data to play some of those things out because you don't actually want to put players in that position of repetitive motion to see what that drives. I do think it's a lot around operational efficiency right now and trying to take mundane tasks and make them, done by computers so that people can focus on the things that are much more value added to the game or to the sport. And I really think personalization is a big part of it too in terms of big themes. How do we take generative AI and create different flavors of our content in a way that it can resonate at a very unique level with fans across the world? And both of you, I mean, you have a global sport. Aaron, I know you guys have been doing a ton of work across the globe growing the game of American football. And so having those sort of tools at your disposal that you can make this American game relevant in Germany and Brazil and Japan and everywhere else, again, it's something that we wouldn't be able to do. It wouldn't be cost effective. It wouldn't be a reasonable thing. But to create these different flavors, I mean, and again, I love the animation play because that's bringing in new fans, and I think, at the end of the day, I think it's somewhat limitless, these opportunities that we have. But, it doesn't have to be a big, sexy picture that we're drawing with this. Some of it's just making work easier and better and more efficient and more cost effective. And then you get to start playing with the more creative things, which is really what you guys all love to do.
Yeah, ultimately, we don't do this for more data and more content. We do this for the passion, love, and experience of the game for our fans, right? And we can be up here talking about all these different data points and numbers and all those aspects, but really what's important is that the emotion of the game translates through these experiences. And as Julie's referring to, as we start to expand the NFL, we're playing in Brazil kickoff week this year. We're going to Madrid next year, Paris, Germany. We keep expanding the game across the world. And if you use a very basic word-for-word type of translation, you're not going to get that experience and that passion through to fans in these new markets who you're trying to get excited. And yeah, we want to give them an opportunity to play flag football. And we want to give young men and young women in all these locations an opportunity for flag because it's going to be in the Olympics in LA 28. So how can we use generative AI to connect the passion for the game that's the American football with tackle to opportunities for them to get involved with flag, show them how their skills as a receiver or a defender translate right to what's going on in the professional game. So all these different types of opportunities we're trying to connect, build a fan base, and take emotion through might be powered by technology, but they don't feel robotic or technical in the end.
Yeah, I think, for any sports league, you're trying to serve the fan. That's the point of it all.
Exactly.
So when these tools can be used to reach them wherever they are, that's the magic of it, I think. Given all of the work that you guys have done with generative AI, what advice would you give for anyone thinking about getting into this space and trying to apply it to their own? And what do you need to have in place before diving in? I want to hear from all of you.
Sure. I think for us, it's about, one, where is your data, where is your content, how do you start with where the assets are, or getting the assets, or even creating more assets? That's number one. I think the number two is actually the number one is, what is the experience you want people to have, right? What is it what is your goal? What is the why of how you're creating this? And then beginning to it's going to take time. I think you have to do two things. We're doing two things. One is we're experimenting and iterating and kind of getting to understand how things evolve. Things are evolving very quickly. So I think all of that needs to happen. There are tools that we need that have yet to be developed in order to get us where we need to go. And some of this is going to take some time, especially where we're trying to create meaningful value for our fans and meaningful value for our players in particular, and for the business overall. So you got to have some patience. There's a lot of hype around this right now, but the real value is out of taking your time and making sure that you're following through on the thing that's going to be kind of what when I talk about in the office, I want this stuff to be operational. I just don't want to be throwing off things that are kind of shiny objects all the time.
I think it's important to just think about sort of the layers in this too. I mean, it starts with structured data and having your data in an accessible place, like the cloud as an example, right? And by data, I'm using your definition of data, which is all content.
Yep.
Right? And then on top of that, being well-versed and facile with AI/ML. I mean, you guys have been at AI/ML for a very, very long time. That is not new. We've been doing that for decades, right? And then on top of that, then you can start, those are your foundational things to start adding generative AI on top of. And then it lets you experiment. And again, you have to have a business case for it. Technology for technology's sake might be sort of interesting, but it's really got to serve the fan, the broadcasters, the players, whoever it may be. So really thinking about those use cases that are going to be meaningful and have value, I think that's a real big part of this too.
Yeah. And back to what we talked about before about bringing together all your internal stakeholders, your key decision makers, getting aligned, building those guiding principles out around AI, and then, surprise or not, have fun, experiment. Try this technology and apply it to new things in new ways. Go back to your structure and your guidelines when you want to decide, is that the right one right there that I want to do? Is it safe enough? Is it going to represent my brand well? Is it going to operate at scale across my organization? You can do that when you've done all that homework and then actually have fun too.
I think success here is 50% technical and 50% cultural. And we can provide all the pieces that you need, the models and the guardrails and the grounding and all those sorts of the security and the privacy and all those sorts of things. But on the cultural side, it's just as important to get that side of things right. So taking big top-down goals as a leadership team, really thinking through what are the needle-moving things, to your point, that if we get this right, it's going to be really meaningful to the fans. It's going to be really meaningful to the league. It's going to be really meaningful to the game. And kind of start working backwards from those. And having those big top-down goals, that motivates your own teams. It will help drive a lot of energy in those teams. It'll help them move really, really quickly. That energy will flow through to your partners like AWS and other folks you're going to work with in order to be able to get them excited. And that excitement is going to carry you with momentum through all the good times and all the things that work and all the hard times when things don't work out as you should expect. And so that momentum driven through something really meaningful, that can carry you through, that can allow you to move a lot more quickly. And speed here is just disproportionately important.
Speed's important for sure, but as Scott just made the point, there's value in taking your time with some of this. So I'm curious how you balance how quickly this is all evolving, as you've acknowledged, with that need to do things the right way for the right customer.
Yeah, it's, technology tends to follow kind of an S-curve in capability. And you never know where you're at on the S-curve until you're looking backwards down it. And I think that you could make a reasonable case that we're on that high gradient part of the S-curve right now, and there's new models and approaches coming out like every 15 minutes. But for my money, I think we're at the bottom left-hand corner. I don't think we've hit the hockey stick inflection point of this technology yet, anywhere near it. And so it's super important to arrange your technology such that it is safe and accurate and repeatable. It is important to arrange the data that flows through these systems in a way that is private and secure. And we spend a large amount of time with that, with our partners, with our customers, working through how to do that. We don't have humans reviewing the data doesn't improve the underlying models, doesn't travel over the public internet, all of those sorts of things. So that's a really big part of making sure that this is successful. And then driving down hallucinations in the system such that the end result is more usable. So a hallucination happens when the AI gets confused. These things are just generating tokens, they're generating words. And so as they're generating, they can sometimes find themselves in a kind of a cul-de-sac. And so a big part of what we help customers do is guide the AI and ground it such as hallucinations are much less common, that the results are much more repeatable and much more accurate, which allows them to be much more useful. And so there's a lot of those pieces to work through, but our role as technology providers and innovators is to make that as easy and as cost-effective as possible for customers, and that's where our investments are.
Mm-hmm. Scott and Aaron, as you have both applied so much of this technology to your work, could you both give me an example of one of those moments where you were just delighted and excited by the possibilities and the experience that it opened up for you?
I think last year, it's two things. I think one is when we built our proof of concept that brought together kind of a multimodal set of content to bring everything, surface everything to the top. All of us stood back and like, oh, okay, because like it didn't mean that somebody didn't have to write a SQL query to get at some particular piece of data, or we didn't have to go to the person that had been in the tour for 32 years that found that knew that off the top of their heads, and it showed us that it could become a tool that everybody could use. And so for us, that was really kind of eye-opening, saying, okay, we've got to pursue this more aggressively.
Yeah, totally agree. Multimodal, and the moment that you train the model to recognize your special context as a business, you say, show me a spike, and it shows it, and the model starts to get it, and that accuracy spikes up, and you're like, wow, it understands football. That's pretty cool. So it's definitely an awesome experience that way. And just want to comment on something Matt said before about speed. And the one thing that's different about this particular moment is this technology is for everyone in your organization. It is not just for us as technologists. It's not just for the data scientists and the BI experts in your organization. Everyone working at your organization is going to use AI in the future and utilize it to do their job, be more efficient, but also produce new and novel things. And so it's very important that we educate everyone within our organizations on AI, the use of it, and also how to be analytic about it, how to look at it with a judgment for, is that right, is that wrong, and speak up about it as an organization so you can tune these models and these experiences, because it's going to get involved in every nook and cranny of your business.
How do you all go about that process internally in your organizations of educating?
For us, it's been interesting. A lot of it has been people getting out and just trying tools. A lot of it for what Aaron's pointing out, like our content team's in it right now. Some of our executive teams are involved in some things that we're doing with them right now. Our finance team is involved with some things. So a lot of it's just been experimentation and looking for those aha moments to show people, give this a try and let us see what you come back with. And then they come back with 20 ideas. They get very excited. And so that's the kind of thing you're like, okay, let's go dig into that. It also makes it easier to get it financed as well too. But generally, experimentation for us has been, doing that, and we've had to manage the responsibilities of experimentation internally so they don't go too far astray externally.
Awesome. Well, this has been very educational for me. I hope it has been for all of you in the audience. And if you guys have any more questions about generative AI, please swing by the AWS booth in the West Hall. A huge thank you to all of our panelists. I'm super excited for the tools that generative AI will give us all as viewers, fans, and however we may experience it. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.